Good evening, everyone. Let me ask you something simple but powerful. What do you believe about yourself? Not what you say to others, not what you post online. I'm asking about the quiet conversation you have with yourself when no one is watching. Because, let me tell you something I've learned. You don't become what you want, you become what you believe. Belief shapes identity in ways that are often invisible but profoundly powerful. At the core of who we are lies what we believe about ourselves, about the world, and about what's possible. These beliefs aren't just ideas we carry. They're the blueprint for how we see ourselves, how we act, and ultimately, who we become. The truth is, you can't live a life that rises above the image you hold of yourself in your own mind. If you believe you're capable, resourceful, and worthy, your actions will reflect that belief. You'll take more risks, recover faster from setbacks, and persist longer through challenges. On the other hand, if you believe you're not good enough, not smart enough, or not lucky enough, those thoughts will quietly write the script of your life. The identity we carry isn't something we're born with. It's something we build, and the raw material is belief. Every time you tell yourself, I'm not a leader, or I'm just not that type of person, you're reinforcing a belief that will shape your decisions and behaviors. Over time, these repeated beliefs form a mental framework, what we call identity, and this identity becomes the lens through which we interpret everything. If you believe you're a failure, even a small mistake feels like proof. But if you believe you're growing, the same mistake becomes a lesson, not a label. Think about how many times people sabotage their own progress because their identity is out of alignment with their goals. A person might set a goal to lose weight, build a business, or become more confident. But if deep down they still believe they are lazy, unworthy, or destined to fail, those old beliefs will quietly pull them back to where they started. It's like trying to run with an anchor tied to your ankle. Eventually, you get tired of fighting yourself. That's why lasting change doesn't begin with behavior. It begins with belief. Behavior follows identity, and identity is born from belief. Even more interesting is that most of our beliefs were formed early, when we were too young to question them. Maybe a teacher said we weren't smart. Maybe a parent was critical. Maybe we failed once and decided we weren't cut out for something. Those moments planted seeds. If no one helps us unlearn those beliefs, they become the silent architects of our future. And most people never stop to question if the beliefs they live by were chosen intentionally or simply absorbed through experience. When you begin to challenge those old beliefs and replace them with new ones, your identity starts to shift. And when identity shifts, everything else does too. So belief isn't just a nice idea. It's the foundation of who you are. It's the silent force that either limits you or lifts you. Your actions, habits, and even relationships all orbit around your sense of self. And that self is defined not by the world, but by what you believe about your place in it. Your mind is a garden, and every thought you entertain is a seed. Some of those seeds grow into weeds: doubt, fear, procrastination, envy. Others grow into strong, beautiful plants: confidence, gratitude, discipline, vision. What you feed and water is what flourishes. The mind doesn't argue with you. It simply accepts whatever you plant. If you plant negative thoughts consistently, your mind doesn't stop to question whether they serve you. It simply begins to grow them. Over time, they take root. They become familiar, even comfortable, and eventually they shape your reality. What you allow to grow in your mental garden determines how you respond to life, how you treat others, and how far you'll go. People often treat thoughts as harmless or passive, as if they just happen to us. But thoughts are not neutral. Every thought is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. Think about how a single idea, repeated over time, can become a belief. And beliefs drive behavior. If you constantly tell yourself that you're not good enough, not capable, or not worthy, you start to behave in ways that prove those thoughts right. You avoid opportunities, play small, and retreat from challenge, not because you can't succeed, but because your internal garden is overrun by the weeds of self-doubt. Those weeds don't just appear overnight, they grow because they're being nurtured, often unintentionally. Now, the good news is that the garden of the mind is also incredibly responsive to change. You can pull out the weeds. You can plant new seeds, but it takes effort. It takes intention. You can't just plant one seed of confidence and expect an instant transformation. You have to water it daily, with repetition, with new experiences, with action that reinforces the new idea. Every time you take a small step outside your comfort zone, you're feeding that new growth. Every time you replace a negative thought with a constructive one, you're reclaiming space in your mental garden. And just like any garden, what you expose your mind to matters. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, whether it's from media, people, or even your own internal dialogue, it's like dumping poison into the soil. Your positive seeds don't stand a chance. But if you create an environment that encourages growth through uplifting conversations, inspiring books, quiet reflection, and meaningful goals, you're giving your mind the nutrients it needs to thrive. The environment doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to support the growth you want to see. Most people don't pay attention to their mental garden until it's completely overgrown. They only notice when life feels chaotic, when they're stuck, or when the same problems keep repeating. But by then, the roots are deep and the cleanup is harder. That's why daily attention is key. A mind left unattended will not stay neutral. It will grow whatever is most familiar, and unfortunately, for many people, that means negativity. But with care, with persistence, and with conscious planting, your mind can become the richest soil in your life. Everything you are becoming starts with the seeds you're planting today. Belief sets your limits, often in ways you don't even notice until you hit an invisible wall. These limits aren't always physical or external. They exist in the mind, formed by years of repetition, experience, influence, and self-talk. The belief that you can't do something is more powerful than any actual obstacle in your path. Because once you believe a limit is real, your mind stops looking for ways around it. You stop trying before you've even started. That belief becomes the ceiling on your potential, not because it's objectively true, but because you've accepted it as true. So much of what holds people back isn't lack of talent, intelligence, or opportunity. It's that quiet voice in their head whispering, "You're not ready," or "That's not for people like you." The problem is, your mind takes that voice seriously. It follows the belief like a blueprint, adjusting your behavior to stay within its borders. If you believe you'll never be good at public speaking, you'll avoid it. If you believe you're bad with money, you won't take steps to improve your financial habits. If you believe success is for other people, you'll quietly settle for less, thinking it's noble to be realistic. These aren't just harmless thoughts, they are internal rules you live by, and they shape the quality of your life. On the other hand, when belief expands, so do the possibilities. The person who believes they can figure things out eventually does. They may stumble and fall, but they persist because their belief gives them permission to keep going. That inner permission is everything. It fuels risk-taking, creativity, and resilience. When you believe something is possible, you start searching for evidence, even unconsciously. You see opportunities where others see dead ends. You try again when others give up. You ask questions, reach out, study, adapt. You act like someone who belongs in the room, even if you're still learning how to stand tall in it. The most dangerous limits are the ones you've lived with so long they feel like facts. They've become part of your identity. You don't even think to question them. You just work around them, like a house built with a wall right through the living room. You decorate it, get used to it, and eventually forget it's not supposed to be there. But every limit that's built from belief can be dismantled. It starts by noticing where you've stopped dreaming, where you've backed away from growth, where you tell yourself, "That's just the way I am." Those statements are clues that a belief is quietly drawing the boundary lines of your life. When you understand that belief is the gatekeeper to your progress, you become more intentional about what you allow to take root in your thinking. You no longer treat beliefs as permanent. You realize they are choices, mental habits that can be broken and rebuilt. And when you begin to challenge those internal limits, the external ones start to fall away too. Your world doesn't change first, your belief does. And then the world makes room for the person you're becoming. Beliefs are often inherited or outdated, yet we live by them as if they are absolute truths. Most of the thoughts we carry about ourselves weren't consciously chosen. They were absorbed. They came from parents, teachers, culture, early experiences, or even a single comment made during a vulnerable moment. We didn't sit down and decide who we were going to believe we are. Instead, we inherited patterns of thinking that were passed down like hand-me-down clothes, some that fit us and many that never did. The problem is that we kept wearing them, and over time, they shaped how we see ourselves, how we respond to the world, and what we believe we're capable of. A child who's told they're too loud may grow into an adult who believes they should stay quiet. A young person who hears, "You're not good at math," may carry that label for life, avoiding careers or opportunities that involve numbers, even if their actual ability is far higher than they believe. We pick up these beliefs when we're too young to question them, and then we grow up defending them, not realizing they're outdated software running in the background. They become default settings, running our lives without any conscious approval. Worse yet, some beliefs were formed during moments of pain, fear, or rejection. A failure in childhood becomes a lifelong label. "I'm not good enough." A broken relationship becomes a universal truth. People can't be trusted. These beliefs harden over time, becoming the lens through which we interpret everything. They become the stories we tell ourselves. "I'm just not that type of person," or "that's just how I am." But the truth is, we are not our beliefs. We are the thinkers of those beliefs, and anything that was learned can be unlearned. The trouble is, outdated beliefs often go unexamined because they feel familiar. Familiarity creates comfort, even when it's painful. It's easier to believe what we've always believed than to confront the fear of changing it. That's why many people keep living the same year over and over again, because even though the scenery may change, the story in their head hasn't. They operate with the same limits, the same assumptions, the same invisible rules that were written long ago by someone else. To break free from inherited or outdated self-beliefs, we first have to become aware of them. We have to catch ourselves in the act of thinking small, shrinking back, or dismissing possibility. Then we need the courage to ask, where did this belief come from? Who gave it to me? And is it still serving me? That moment of awareness is powerful because it gives us a choice. We can choose to keep running the old script, or we can start writing a new one. It won't happen overnight, but belief is not set in stone. It's shaped over time by repetition, new evidence, and conscious reinforcement. When we challenge the beliefs that no longer fit, we give ourselves permission to grow beyond them. And in doing so, We reclaim the freedom to become someone new. Belief is a daily practice, not a one-time decision or a flash of inspiration. It's something that must be nurtured, reinforced, and protected every single day. Just like physical fitness, mental and emotional strength don't come from a single workout. They come from consistent effort. You don't believe in yourself once and then never doubt again. Life will test your belief regularly, and if you're not feeding it daily, it will weaken under pressure. It's easy to believe when things are going well, when the results are clear, when you're winning. But belief matters most when the evidence is thin, when the path is uncertain, and when no one else sees what you see. Every day, you wake up with a choice. You can practice believing in the person you're becoming, or you can unconsciously reinforce the doubts you've carried for years. Both are forms of practice. If you're not actively building belief, you're likely rehearsing insecurity. If you keep repeating thoughts like, "I'll never figure this out," or "I'm not cut out for this," your mind accepts those statements as instructions. And the more often you think them, the stronger those neural pathways become. Belief, in that sense, isn't just emotional, it's physiological. The brain literally strengthens the circuits you use the most. That's why intentional repetition matters. Positive belief isn't just about thinking good thoughts. It's about choosing thoughts that serve your vision and practicing them consistently. Affirmations, visualizations, writing your goals, surrounding yourself with encouraging influences. These aren't motivational gimmicks. They're tools for rewiring your mind toward belief. And the work isn't glamorous. It's often quiet and unseen. It happens in the moments when no one's clapping, when nothing dramatic is happening, when the only person you need to convince is yourself. And it's in those moments that most people give up. They think, "I tried believing and it didn't work." But belief is not a magic switch. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through resistance. Every time you face a challenge and choose to believe anyway, that belief gets stronger. Every time you move forward in the face of fear or failure, you teach yourself that belief is more reliable than circumstances. Belief practiced daily turns into conviction, and conviction creates momentum. Even when you have a strong sense of purpose, doubt will still show up. Fear will still whisper. That's normal, but daily belief practice means you don't let those voices win. You acknowledge them, then redirect your focus. You remind yourself why you started. You revisit your vision. You choose faith over fear, not once, but as a discipline. Over and over again, that's how belief takes root. That's how it becomes who you are. Most people want confidence without the repetition that builds it. They want results without the practice that earns them. But belief doesn't work that way. It's a habit, not a gift. It's built through the small, quiet choices you make every day to trust in your potential, to act in alignment with your goals, and to speak to yourself with the voice of someone who refuses to give up. Your life rises to the level of your self-image, because you will never outperform the opinion you hold of yourself. No matter how much you learn, how many goals you set, or how many opportunities come your way, if deep down you don't believe you are worthy, capable, or enough, you'll find a way to shrink your life to match that internal picture. Self-image is the invisible governor that regulates everything. Your confidence, your actions, your decisions, and your ability to receive success. It's not just what you think about yourself on a surface level. It's what you believe about who you are at the core. And that belief silently shapes how high you're willing to reach and how much you're willing to receive. People often assume that success changes how you see yourself, but it works the other way around. When you expand your self-image, your life begins to follow. It's not that life suddenly becomes easier, but that you start approaching it differently. You stop playing small. You stop second, guessing every move. You stop settling for less than you deserve. And all of that begins not with a change in circumstance, but with a change in how you see yourself. Because if you see yourself as someone who's just average, you'll resist anything that looks like excellence. If you see yourself as unlovable, you'll sabotage relationships that try to prove otherwise. If you see yourself as destined to struggle, you'll find a way to make sure ease and success never feel at home. This is why two people can be given the same opportunity, and one will rise while the other retreats. It's not because one is more talented, but because one sees themselves as someone who belongs in that opportunity, while the other doesn't. Self-image determines how you interpret your experiences. A rejection to someone with a strong self-image feels like redirection. To someone with a poor self-image, it feels like confirmation of failure. And so the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not just about resources or timing. It's about identity. Most people try to change their life from the outside in. They chase money, relationships, status, or recognition, hoping those things will finally make them feel worthy. But unless your self-image changes, even if you get what you want, you'll either push it away or be too afraid to enjoy it. You'll feel like an imposter waiting to be exposed, because your life is always trying to match your self-image, never the other way around. Changing your self-image isn't about wishful thinking. It's about retraining how you speak to yourself, what you expect from yourself, and how you respond to challenge. It means you begin to see yourself as someone who deserves the level of life you're working toward. And as that image sharpens and strengthens, your actions begin to align with it. You start taking different risks. You tolerate less nonsense. You show up with more clarity and direction. And slowly but surely, your life begins to rise. Not because the world changed, but because you did.